This is a series of 100 films about Japanese foods that I've eaten, and this is a film about Japanese foods that sound terrifying until you try them. There is a kind of game Japanese people sometimes play with foreigners. It's the question of if they present this awful, weird food in front of the foreigner, will they eat it? And trust me, for a lot of Japanese people, these foods are things they would never ever want to eat on their own. One of the biggest differences between North America and Japan is that we waste so much of the animal in our meat dishes, unless we make it into something like hot dogs. Watashi. In Japan, the non-wasteful food that comes to mind is Horumon. Now this is a stew of the less desirable parts of the pig or cow. The word Horumon is based on the word hormone, with the idea that this kind of offal, that's O-F-F-A-L, gives you more stamina. Despite this, my ex-girlfriend hated it. It was something that she would never ever want to eat. Watashi. And the other thing that comes to mind is cod sperm, or shirako. Again, I tried it once, it tastes fine, never bothered me, but the idea, the concept is a bit strange. Now, two of the most famous strange Japanese foods are the ones that are not considered especially weird. Horse sashimi, or basashi, is something common in Japan and unimaginable in English-speaking countries. It's more something we feed to our pets. I mean, that's what dog food is, isn't it? In Japan, traditionally, they didn't have the vast land enjoyed by Europeans to raise animals. Lamb and cows were scarce, so a horse did double duty, first as transportation and later as food. And I'm not saying people eat a huge plate of raw horse, but with basashi, you'll get a small bowl with small thin slices that's dipped into soy sauce. It's actually not too bad. I don't want to go overboard and say it's memorable, but it has its own distinct flavor and not something you'd eat every day, but perhaps once a month. What's even more rare is chicken sashimi. This was something I read about before I came to Japan. How could they, I wondered. As we know, you can easily be contaminated with salmonella. And when I first started working in Japan as an English teacher, an old man came into the English school. We had a lesson. At the end, we started talking about the raw chicken dish. And he admitted to having tried it, and he said, well, you know, they raise the chicken on special farms, and they're raised well, and the sashimi is prepared carefully. So it's not like they walk into Walmart and grab the weekly special from some factory farm in Montana. And you pay a lot. I've never actually tried it, but nor have I heard anybody complain about it. But just keep in mind, if you're a foreigner, at some point, someone Japanese is going to ask you to eat one of these delicacies. Remember, they think it's weird. We eat peanut butter. The word of the day. The word of the day is watashi. It means I in Japanese. Japanese people typically don't use pronouns as much as English speakers do. Sentences don't usually begin with I, you, he, she, or it. Mostly they just skip to the direct object or the verb. In fact, when talking about other people, they don't usually say I or you. They usually use the person's name. So if you use the word watashi too much, it sounds like you're always saying, as for me, to differentiate yourself from everybody else, and it sounds a bit standoffish. Now, watashi is the polite form of I, but there are other forms. Watakushi is the honorific form. The average working-age Japanese person might use it once per year. Boku is another form which I use quite frequently, and most men often use this form. And for women, there is Atashi. Atashi is almost only used by women, so keep that in mind, guys. Also, the word for you is anata. However, Japanese people think the word anata is a little bit rude, so it's a bad idea to address an older Japanese man with the word anata, especially if they're a superior at your company. As always, if you want to remember this word, feel free to watch this film 10 more times and repeat along with me. Next time. So that's it until next time, when we discover the safest way to eat the poisonous Japanese pufferfish. So until then, sayonara.